1.5. This is going to be 1.5 IQR and box plots. So we're finishing up this chapter today. We will not test on Friday. We will test on Tuesday. So I love giving tests right after a weekend. It's my favorite thing to do. Sorry. It's just kind of how it works out. It'll only be on this chapter, obviously. So we probably will start chapter 2 on Friday. Expect somewhat of a review. I'll give you like a frappy question. And on the test, it'll mostly be multiple choice, maybe some fill in the blank kind of questions. But I generally try to put a free response question that was used on a previous AP test. You guys have access to those questions, whether you know it or not. If you go to apcentral.com and look at stats, you can pull up previous year's questions, answers, all sorts of things. However, there's like 20 years of problems in there. Good luck identifying which one I might choose for you on any given test. So, but they're there, and if you, go do them all. If you can go do them all, then I think you'll be my number. You'll be one of my 5 scores. I had one student last year that went through pretty near all of them by the end, and she nailed the test. So, all right. So 5-number summary. Let's start with that. I mean, I can encourage you to cheat, but I would rather you actually take it like a, can I say take it like a man? I don't think I can say that anymore, can I? I don't think, but I'm going to say it anyway. Take it like a man and just take the problems as they come to you, right? 5-number summary. Minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and maximum. This is the 5-number summary. Okay, it's easy to find. We're going to look at a couple of really short examples, how to come up with that, and then I'm going to show you how the calculator will do it all for you. So let's say we start with a really small set, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, in this set, the median is one of the numbers in the set. It's 3, right? And the maximum and the minimum are pretty obvious, 1 and 5. What we want to get is the quartile 1 and the quartile 3. Technically, the median is quartile 2. That's another way of referring to it. Since the median is used, the 3 is used up as the median, I can't use it to get quartile 1 and quartile 3. I have to use only the numbers that's left on each side. So that's going to be, Q1 is going to be between 1 and 2. Is 1.5, and Q3 would be 4.5, right? Halfway between the 4 and the 5. So my 5-number summary is going to be 1, 1.5, 3, 4.5, and 5. Now, if the sample set's fairly small, this is an easy enough thing to do. If it's really large, then it takes some time. Let's look at another set. So it's same set of numbers, but let's add a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So for the 5-number summary here, my median is not one of the numbers in the set. It's going to be between 3 and 4. So the median is 3.5. Okay. Since the 3 is not part of, it's used to calculate the median, but it is not the median itself, I can use that for the lower quartile, and I can use the 4 for the upper quartile. So what's halfway between these guys? Well, that's going to be 2. This is my quartile 1, so I don't have to average there. and I got the 5 here. This is my quartile 3. So that's the middle one of the 4, 5, and 6. So then this is going to be 1, 2, 3.5, 5, and 6 would be my 5-number summary. So let's go to the calculator. Let's do this in the calculator. So I'm going to show you another way to clear a list. Go ahead and turn it on. Get to your main screen there, and if you go to Stats and then Edit, you probably have something in one of your lists. Here's another way to clear it. If you go up to the very top where it says L1, and be careful, hit Clear, not Delete. If you hit Delete, the whole list will disappear, the L1 included. You want to just hit Clear and then Enter, and that'll clear your list too. So that's a nice way of clearing lists when you're in the list. All right, so let's put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. Okay. And then if we exit that and we go back to Stat, and we're going to go over to Calc. I'll write this down for your notes here in just a second. You see on the very top, 1var stats. Go ahead and hit that. Now, it gives you some choices. What list do you want me to do the 1var stats? That's what it's asking. L1 is great. The frequency of the list, this is the one that you always leave alone. Don't change it. It says nothing. We leave it just like that. We'll go ahead and calculate. Now, this gives us a lot of great information. At some point in the year, you should know all of these, but at this point, the X bar, it gives us the average, 3. The sum of the x's, that's adding all the x's up, the 1 through 5. This is the sum of the squares of the x's. These really, I would want you to know that that's what they are, but we don't really use them because we don't need them if we've got all the other stuff. Here's our standard deviation, SX, about 1.58. This is also a form of standard deviation that we are going to ignore, not just now, but in the future, at least as the calculator gives it. So we'll learn more about that one later, but we don't ever use that guy. There's our sample size, N is 5, and then below that we've got the minimum, the quartile 1, the median, quartile 3, and the maximum. So this 1var stats gives you a lot of information, and it stands literally for one variable statistics. You're dealing with one list of variables. So that is stat, calc, and 1var stats. Sorry, let me zoom out again. I really think that we should have, like everybody in here should have at least a medium-sized French fry from McDonald's right now. I just think that's... All right. Okay, so box plots. So what this does is it gives us the information for our box plots, which we haven't done yet in this class. Another thing that this is called is box and whisker. I don't care which one you use, box plot, box and whisker. Anybody reading that would understand if they knew anything about stats. So they're synonymous. So let's go back to our example of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And our 5-number summary that we've already calculated for that. So there's our sample set. Box and whisker looks like this. We take and we make a number line. And again, since it's only one variable here, we are, in our number line, we're going to number it. anytime you do a number line, you have to have equal intervals between, whether you're counting by ones, halves, fives, whatever. You can't do like 1 and 11 and 13 and 27. You can't do that, right? Not unless you have spacing that is appropriate for that. So here's how the box and whisker works. We're going to take our minimum and our maximum, and we're going to put some dots above those. Then we're going to take our median, which was 3 in this case, and I'm going to put a line above 3. And I'm going to put a line above our lower quartile and our upper quartile. Lower quartile was 1.5, so about here. And that's going to be a line. And upper quartile was about 4.5. Now, so that's your 5-number summary. Visually, we're just going to take the lines and make a box out of them. And the dots get connected to the box as whiskers. I'm hoping this isn't a totally brand new idea, but if it is, it's a pretty simple one. Each of these is a quartile. Now, that doesn't indicate that each is an exact quarter. It's not. It's about a quarter. But the idea here is that each of these pieces is about 25% of the total of the data. So this is our Q3, our median, Q1, max, and min. And usually they're not labeled. But you want to know that about 50% of the data falls within the box. Now, does the box give any indication, or does this really give us any indication of shape? Would be a question. Could we tell if it's unimodal or bimodal or something like that, do you think? Yanya? Where's the bump? I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't really give us shape in terms of, like, you know, if we threw a blanket over some data. But if I had something drawn like this, maybe you saw a box and whisker plot that looked like this. Perhaps you could make a shape analysis of this. What do you think? Skew right, right skew, exactly. This would be a skew right, or right skew. And we might even say, what about this point out here? Possible outlier, yeah, potential outlier. It's a potential outlier. Is it for sure? I don't know. I don't know. That's what we're going to learn next, is to define an outlier a little bit better mathematically. So you can tell shape in terms of skew on these, but not really, you can't really tell how many modes it might have, you know, bumps. It doesn't show up that way. Okay. All right. So far, so good? Okay. Let's move on. I'm getting pretty close to the end of the chapter for you. Next thing is the 1.5 IQR rule. The 1.5 IQR rule is how we identify outliers. So I'm going to change the data set here in a little bit, but the low outlier is calculated very simply. It's the Q1 of the set, the lower quartile of the set, minus 1.5 times the IQR. And remember, the IQR is Q3 minus Q1. It's that interquartile range. And this gives us a value, any number less than, I'm trying to remember if equal than is an outlier. I think it's anything less than this would be considered an outlier. Any number less than the result is an outlier. Now keep in mind, that would be a numerical outlier. Depends on the context of the problem whether that actually makes sense to call something an outlier or not. So I introduced the idea of potential outlier just because context definitely comes into play. If you don't know context, I think it's always wise to kind of go, yeah, it's out there, but we might still call it a potential outlier because we never really totally define anything in this class. So a high outlier is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So any number greater than that result is an outlier. Or potential outlier. Probable outlier. So let's look at a data set that's a little bit bigger than our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's still going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But let's add a 9, an 11, a 13, and a 17. And a 30. So the median in this case is going to be between 5 and 9. So 7. But I don't really need that for the IQR. I need Q1 and Q3. So between 5 and 1, I've got 3 digits. This is going to be my Q1. And over here, my 9, 11, 13, 17. The 13 is going to be in between those. It's going to be my Q3. So the IQR is going to be 13 minus 3, or 10. Okay. So now let's see if anything else is an outlier. It doesn't look like we'd have a low outlier, would you agree? But it looks like maybe the 30 is an outlier, and perhaps the 17. I don't know. We'll see. So for the low outlier, this calculation is going to be Q1, which is 3, minus 1.5 times 10, which will be 3 minus 15, or negative 12. So that's the number we're comparing the low numbers by. So there's no low outlier. There's nothing that low. Now the high is going to be 13 Q3 plus 1.5 times 10. And that's going to give us 13 plus 15, which is 28. So do we have an outlier in the set?
Yes.
Yeah, 30 is a suspected outlier, or 30 is an outlier. All right, I want to take just a couple more minutes of your time and show you how the calculator can do this for you. There's no real 1.5 IQR in the calculator, so we use graphs to do this. So if you go back to your list, and try to leave that so people are still taking notes. If you go back to your list, so stat and edit, let's modify this and get the rest of these numbers in there. So we add a 9 and an 11, 13, 17, and 30. Now once I've done that, I want to go to my graph. So second and y equals. Your plot 1 should be on. Hopefully everything else is off except plots 5. No idea what that does. I just know that it works. So you have a couple different choices for box and whisker. You have one that has some little dots off to the side and one that doesn't. Let's choose the one that doesn't first. So it's the far right of the box and whisker or box plot. XList L1 should be just fine. Frequency 1, color, whatever you want. And if we graph this, you should get this guy. Remember, you might need to hit zoom 9. In fact, it's good practice just to do that, just to make sure that you're seeing everything you should. So we definitely have a skew right here. But is that an outlier? Well, we've already decided it is. Let's see if the calculator will choose that as well. So go back to your graphs, so second y equals. Go into that guy. And I want you to choose the other one. It's got the box and whisker, but it's got a couple little dots there. Those dots are outliers. So what that's trying to say is it will show outliers as dots. So if we choose that and then hit graph, our graph changes a little bit. Where now the 30 is definitely the outlier. And if you want to see some stuff, some magic, you can hit trace and it'll put a little X there. It tells you the median, Q1, the minimum. You don't have to do the 1-var stats to get these. You can actually do the graph. And it'll give you those values. So, pretty good stuff.